The Civil War ended at Appomattox, but a new, perhaps even more vicious war was just beginning. The guns were silent, but the shouting had just started. This wasn't a war of armies, but of ideas. It was a cage match for the soul of America, fought between a stubborn president, a vengeful Congress, and a defiant South. Welcome to the political battleground of Reconstruction. We're diving into a time when grammar could topple a government, a drunken inauguration humiliated a nation, and the governor of Texas barricaded himself in his office until the door was chopped down with an axe. If you want to help us reconstruct the YouTube algorithm, please smash that like button and ratify your subscription to our channel. It's the only amendment we ask for. Now, let's step into the chaos. The fight began with a simple question. Who gets to decide the future? President Lincoln had a lenient plan to bring the South back gently. But after his assassination, the job fell to his vice president, Andrew Johnson. Johnson was a war Democrat from Tennessee, loyal to the Union but holding deep racial prejudices. And his presidency started poorly. On Inauguration Day 1865, Johnson was sick with typhoid fever. To steel his nerves, he drank 3 tumblers of whiskey right before entering the Senate chamber. The result was a disaster. He gave a rambling, belligerent speech, slurring his words and calling out cabinet members by name. He even grabbed the Bible and kissed it with a sloppy, drunken fervor. Lincoln famously tried to defend him, saying, "Andy ain't a drunkard," but the damage was done. Opposing Johnson were the radical Republicans in Congress, led by the terrifying Thaddeus Stevens. Stevens was a man of iron will and biting sarcasm. Born with a club foot and often wearing an ill-fitting wig, he didn't care what anyone thought of him. He believed the South was a conquered province that needed to be punished and remade. When Johnson claimed to be a self-made man, Stevens destroyed him with a single line. That relieves the Almighty of a heavy responsibility. Stevens wanted to break the power of the Southern planters by confiscating their land and giving 40 acres and a mule to freedmen. Johnson, naturally, hated this. The conflict exploded in 1866 when Johnson went on a speaking tour called the Swing Around the Circle. It was a catastrophe. He traded insults with hecklers, comparing himself to Jesus and Congress to Judas Iscariot. It was so embarrassing that voters handed the Republicans a massive supermajority, giving them the power to override Johnson's vetoes and take control of Reconstruction. With Johnson sidelined, Congress passed the Reconstruction Trilogy, 3 amendments that rewrote the Constitution. First, the 13th Amendment, free. It broke the chains of slavery forever. Second, the 14th Amendment, citizens. This was the insurance policy. It granted birthright citizenship and equal protection of the laws, ensuring that civil rights weren't just a temporary law, but a permanent part of the Constitution. Finally, the 15th Amendment, vote. It guaranteed that the right to vote could not be denied based on race. This was the legal foundation that allowed African American men to enter politics for the first time. To enforce these new laws, Congress imposed the Ironclad Oath. This required voters and officials to swear they had never voluntarily borne arms against the Union. Since almost every white man in the South had supported the Confederacy, this retrospective oath instantly disqualified the entire traditional ruling class. In Texas, this purge opened the door for a radical new government. A coalition of Unionists, Northern carpetbaggers, and newly freed African Americans elected E.J. Davis as governor. Davis was a tall, gaunt, cold-eyed Union general who was hated by the old Confederate elite. The tension in Texas boiled over in 1873. Democrat Richard Koch, a hulking, white-bearded giant of a man, defeated Davis in the governor's election. But Davis refused to leave. He challenged the election in the Supreme Court based on a punctuation mark. The state constitution said polls should be open for 4 days, semicolon. The election law only allowed for 1 day. Davis's appointed court, forever known as the Semicolon Court, ruled the election illegal because of that single dot and comma. Koch ignored the court and marched to the Capitol. Davis barricaded himself on the ground floor, protected by a militia called the Travis Rifles. It was a standoff. But then, the militia switched sides. When President Grant refused to send troops to save him, Davis locked his office door and took the key. It ended not with a bang, but with a chop. Koch supporters took an axe and smashed down the door to the governor's office. Davis's rule and Reconstruction in Texas was over. The political battleground of Reconstruction was a chaotic mix of high ideals and low politics. It gave us the amendments that define our rights today, but it also left a legacy of bitterness and unfinished business. The fight over who holds power and who gets to be a citizen didn't end in 1877. Next time, we'll look at the human cost of this era in Theme 2, The Reality of Freedom, covering the mathematics of sharecropping and the desperate struggle for survival. You won't want to miss it. What do you think was the most significant moment of political chaos in this era? The drunken speech or the Semicolon Court? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to keep learning history with us. Until next time, stay curious.